All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce Ryan Hazen, who you guys all met earlier from Carroll College. Ryan is an instructional technologist at Carroll College. He is the administrator of Carroll's self-hosted Moodle and manager of Carroll's TechSmith Relay, Turnitin, and Zoom accounts. He also helps design and install modern classrooms, then works directly with faculty to plan and to implement and improve their pedagogical deployment of an increasingly diverse array of tools. Though Ryan is perhaps best known as Chief Mountaineer, really? of the annual Mountain Moot, he is also on the board of directors of Northwest Met, the XLI Planning Committee, and the Program Committee for Moodle Moot US. And he has a very nice ponytail. It's not really a ponytail, it's a braided thing. All right, let's have a nice round of applause for Ryan.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming to this session. This presentation is called Making Technology Invisible, Active Pedagogy for the Modern World. It's kind of funny that we'd have a presentation called Making Technology Invisible at a technology conference, but at the end of the day, a really well-integrated piece of technology you shouldn't see it. It should just be there. And I'm going to talk about how to make that happen, because we spend a lot of time designing and installing technology in classrooms, and a lot of times we, the technologists and the classroom designers, get a little bit disconnected from what's actually happening with the faculty in that room once we build it. We have these ideas of what faculty are going to do, but don't have the time to actually work with them and spend entire class sessions with them. I have the luxury at Carroll of being able to do both, classroom design and installation, and instructional design. So that's what this presentation is about. So in the modern world, screens are everywhere. There are more screens than people in this room right now. I'm sure you already know that. And so I just want to show of hands. How many of you know a kid that has their own tablet? Does anybody know a kid that has a tablet? I have two kids and they both have tablets. Has anybody ever been in one of these bars where they have like the ordering menu and screen built into the table? Raise your hand if you've seen one of those. Okay, so not as many, but now I want you to raise your hand if you think the future is going to have fewer screens in it than the present does. Oh, Peter's going out there. I don't believe that, and I don't think anybody else in here believes that either. So the question is, what do we do with all these screens when we're educating students? Well, the modern world needs modern classrooms, and so I'm going to talk about this room right here. This is a room we have at Carroll, and we call it the Sandbox. Now, this is in our library, and the way that we build this room is all of this white space is whiteboard paint, and then these ultra short throw Epson projectors, which are actually touch interactive now, which was really cool, project directly down onto the whiteboard wall. And then we have this Han furniture here that's all on wheels. You can move it around. And if you haven't used Epsons before, they have a wonderful program if you network them. It's called Epson EasyMP. And you can project wirelessly from a laptop, Windows, Mac, or whatever, to these projectors so that students can take their laptops, they can put what is on their laptops on the screen, and then they can annotate over top of that on the whiteboard walls. So we have been doing this this room is now 4 years old at Carroll, and we've been at this for a while, and we are replicating it across campus. The other thing about this particular room is it's extremely inexpensive. You can put one of these up if you don't have to change walls, if you don't have to actually build the room. You can put all this together for about $50,000. Crazy inexpensive compared to some of the other teal classrooms that you see being built around with hundreds of feet of HDMI cable. The only HDMI cables in this room, believe it or not, go from the Apple TV that's on top of the projector into the projector. It's like a foot of HDMI, which is great. But, if you want to talk about this, catch us afterwards, because I'm not going to talk much more about the specs, but Dan Case, if you see him around, is the brain behind this room, and you can corner him and talk about it. He loves to talk about it because it's awesome. So, my question to you is what modern classrooms need. What do you think? Now, I've talked about this Sandbox, and I know we all have other teal classrooms. We have other technology, multimedia installations. And I want to pose this question to you. What is it that modern classrooms need? And I'm going to use a poll everywhere here. I don't know if anybody's ever used poll everywhere. But what I want you to do is get out your phone or your computer, and I want you to text Sunset Lagoon 979 to the number 2333. Just do that once. And then anything that you text to that number 2233 after that is going to show up on the screen. So before you submit your answers, though, I want to encourage you to talk to one another at your tables. What is the most important thing that modern classrooms need? Also, if you don't have a cell phone or you don't text, polev.com/sunsetlagoon979, where you can get there from your browser. So what is the most important thing in a modern classroom? I like where we're going here. First response is students. Third and fourth response is students. A competent instructor. A teacher that uses tech appropriately for what is being taught. That is indispensable in a modern classroom. Absolutely indispensable. Wireless HDMI, good lighting, collaboration friendly. I suspect that John Loney, was that you? Betamax? Means for power, oh, that's huge. One of the things when we build these classrooms now, this is something that we have to take into account. That's absolutely without question. Collaboration, means for interaction. Plants. We do focus that sandbox room is in our library, which is a very open, modern library with great floor-to-ceiling windows. We have lots of plants in there. It's totally important. They make the oxygen for us to breathe. Connectivity, adaptability, attention to acoustics, all these things, very important. But of course, I had my own answer. So what I think is most important in modern classrooms, nobody actually said, even though you're kind of sniffing around, barking up the right tree, the most important thing in modern classrooms to me is active pedagogy. Not just an instructor that's competent with the technology or the content, but an instructor that is competent with getting students involved in the process of learning. And in the past, all of us got our degrees by sitting in a room and listening to, the professor lecture at us. We took notes and then we took a test on it. This is not how we interact with information any longer. So on the screen right now, you're going to see two things happening. First of all, we've got some students sitting at this table and a teacher talking to them about what's displayed on the screen. They happen to be actually adding alt text to an image that they're posting into a Moodle discussion forum. And then this other picture up here that you see on the screen is a group of students. This student right here is connected wirelessly to the Epson projector, and this is Word on her computer, and these students are all working together to edit this paper. And so the teacher is now standing beside this 6-foot wide display of the student's paper and pointing to the paper and saying, you need to fix this. Let's talk about this citation. Let's change the intro to this paragraph. Let's change this. Let's change your introduction. Let's do this. And so what happens in this classroom, and now this will happen with multiple different groups all at the same time, as the teacher moves around helping students edit their papers, what the net result is that you cut out that step where you get a paperback that's covered in red marks and you have to decipher what the teacher meant with all these little shorthand things that they did. Instead, you can actually edit your paper while the teacher is standing there watching you do it. This is a game changer when it comes to peer editing and collaborative writing. Our communication and languages and literature departments have totally eaten this up. They love the Sandbox for open air peer review, is what we call it. So now, active pedagogy makes technology invisible. That's the point. That student right here, who's editing their paper on the wall, is not looking at a display. They are not sitting there with a computer in front of them. They're not thinking about, oh, how does this Epson projector work, or this whiteboard pane is too reflective, or whatever. They're thinking about that paper. The technology has melted away, and they have come into a place where their total focus is on the content. And that's what active pedagogy should be doing for us, and that is how you make technology invisible. There's one thing I want to point out, too. This teacher in this picture is standing in the middle of the room with 4 collaborative groups editing papers on different screens. This teacher standing in the middle of the room, what are they doing? Anybody? What's she doing?
Standing in the middle of the room.
Standing, nothing. Yeah, standing in the middle of the room, doing nothing. She planned a good learning experience for these students, and now she has stepped back, and she's letting the students get actively involved in what they're working on. That is modern teaching. The teacher needs to get out of the way. She is important. She's the director of the Languages and Literature Department at Carroll College, but she's not the most important person in the room. The most important person in the room are these students. And then the other thing about this picture here on the bottom, the other thing about this is that in the Sandbox in particular, you don't have to have the technology on at all. You can turn it off and just use the whiteboard walls as space to explain, to write up, to diagram, to maybe do some information visualization, and get the students involved in what they're doing. So, first of all, always remember, this is sort of these are my maxims of teaching. Anybody familiar with Daniel T. Willingham? He wrote a book called Why Don't Students Like School? The cognitive scientist. He's my favorite cognitive scientist, and I do have a top 5 list. But he says in this book, memory is the residue of thought. So if you want students to remember something, you want students to retain your content, you have to force them to think about it. You can't just talk at them. Some students are going to take notes, and they will be thinking about what you're saying while they do that. But if you actually want everyone in the room to remember what you're saying, you have to get them all actively thinking about it. And then there's this Bonwell and Eisen Higher Ed report. I love this quote right here, because this is from 1991. And when we talk about, technology is changing the way we're teaching, technology is revolutionizing this, is revolutionizing that, it's not. Our cognition is the same. The tools that we use to communicate with one another have changed, but this doesn't change. Listen to this. Students must do more than just listen. They must read, write, discuss, or be engaged in solving problems. Most important, to be actively involved, students must engage in such higher-order thinking tasks as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Strategies promoting active learning can be defined as instructional activities involving students in doing things and thinking about what they are doing. This was before the advent of technology. This is something we already know about people, and it's important that we take this and apply it to these new spaces that we're using. So we need to talk. All of us really need to talk. It's about the Moodle for us, for you, whatever LMS you're using. Modern classrooms aren't designed for lectures. You have to know this. Modern classrooms are not designed for lectures. You will need to deliver content online no matter what. You don't have a choice. Forget it. If you're faculty or you have faculty that say, I'm not delivering content online, tell them they're missing out on half of the game. Bottom line, you can't get away without doing it. So what I mean by delivering content online is not just making videos and having people watch them, but actually integrating those videos with things that make the students think about the videos. You can't just say watch a video and come to class and you're going to know that lecture. You've got to integrate it with something here. And what you're seeing here is a video. There I am down there in the corner. I have a green screen, which I use way too much. But it's when you create a video lecture, what you're going to want to do is integrate it with activities in your learning management system that force your students to digest and think about that content and do some kind of cognitive action with it. So in this case, on the screen you see a video or a screenshot of a video of me, and then below it is a matching question that addresses some of the content of the video. This is absolutely integral for prepping students to come into these modern classrooms. I'm going to share another one with you up here on the screen now. You see a question, and it's got a link to the Carroll College mission statement. I teach a freshman seminar class, and we were learning about the mission statement. And then this question gives you an open-ended response. Now, you can link to the Carroll College mission statement and read it while you're giving this response. I'm not testing these students on what they already know about the Carroll College mission statement. I am making them read it and respond so that when they come into the classroom, we can actually do some high-order analysis, synthesis type stuff. And then finally, one more example from Moodle, a discussion forum. This is a video of Sublime's April 26, 1992, if anybody's familiar with that. And we were talking about anarchy, and this is a discussion forum with the video embedded in it. So the students have to watch the video, and they have to respond in the discussion forum. And this is all before class. So when we talk about flipping your classroom, delivering content online, you absolutely must have interactives with it, or your students are going to zone out very, very quickly. So let's talk about this. Oh, let me get back up here. Wrong button. So Moodle can deliver the content, and you should focus on designing learning experiences that engage students in higher order thinking when they're in their classroom. So here's a lesson example from my freshman seminar class. You'll notice in this classroom we've got those 5 projections that go all the way around the room. We have a couple extra TVs over here with Apple televisions connected to them. So on the TV here, the students have a timer, and they're working collaboratively in groups to explain the Carroll College mission statement through drawing on the wall, through a visual representation of what is in our mission statement. So let's take a look at this. This is one of the things that the students drew on the wall in response to this. I had 5 groups, and all the 5 groups there are 5 paragraphs in the Carroll College mission statement, conveniently. So I said, each of you groups, I want you to draw something that represents what you read in your paragraph of the mission statement. And on the screen you see, up at the top, the students drew the Carroll logo. Below it, they have the Chi-Rho, which is a Catholic symbol. It's a P and an X together, which represent Christ. I don't know if anybody, Carroll's a Catholic school, just for context. And then in front of that, you see the Om, the cross, the crescent and star of Islam, the Star of David, and the wheel, the Buddhist wheel, all in front, sort of integrated in this picture. So I want you now to look at this, and I want you to discuss at your tables, and I want you to think, what possibly could the mission statement have said that inspired students to draw this? What was the content of that paragraph? Now discuss this at your tables. I'm actually going to walk around and bother you guys. So go ahead and make sure you're discussing it rather than mess around with you. You can, yeah. All right, no Googling our mission statement just yet, okay? Not just yet. Yeah, it's been a very interesting discussion about Catholic identity as a school versus academic independence from the dogmatic teaching of the church. Yeah, I really like I'm not Catholic, but I love being in that environment because it's like, yeah, it's really neat. All right, so who wants to answer this on my lapel mic? I'm going to bring my lapel mic around, and I want someone to explain to me what they think this image here of the Carroll emblem, the symbol of Christ, and all those different religious symbols means. I'm going to break a rule that I generally, no, I'm not going to break a rule that I generally make. I'm going to come and ask Carrie, tell me what you think.
Inclusive, culturally inclusive, or something along those lines.
Culturally inclusive. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Too bad.
I'm going to suppose that there might be some statement about founded on a Catholic tradition or something, because that's kind of in the background and it's bigger.
Right, yeah, so Carroll is a Catholic school. It's a diocesan liberal arts school. And I'm going to share with you now what the actual mission statement says: welcoming all persons of goodwill in a cooperative journey toward truth and virtue. So the point with this is not necessarily that the whiteboard walls are there or that we have whiteboard markers. The point is that this group worked collaboratively to translate from text into some other medium the content that I was trying to get them to learn. These students, through the process of going through, and I wish I had a video of this, because what they did is they had the screen there on the whiteboard wall and they projected all these different symbols and then traced them, and then they came up with this. So that was, 15, 20-minute activity that, like, this is not some end product. The product was actually the process, and the students going through the process of designing this graphic actually engaged with the material and learned the content in a better way, and then had to present this back out to the class. And if you look around the room, there's 5 different groups that have to do this. So it's on every wall in the room, totally immersive, very active. Here's some other ones. This is cool. They had a farm scene in the background with an angel, a farmer with this represents, offering of integrative and value-centered education rooted in freedom of inquiry. That's in one of the other paragraphs. So this is freedom of thought. They have a bald eagle inside of a thought bubble for this person. Value-centered education. They thought about the angel and they thought about the values traditionally associated with the farming community, so they put a farm in the background using a projector. Instilling an enduring wonder for knowledge that will prepare students for leadership in their chosen vocations. This is the one that really got me. SpongeBob, they drew with wide open eyes, looking just amazed and like, ah, and he's holding a rainbow. And to them, that was their representation of wonder for knowledge. And then, of course, you've got your career path. We have some science stuff here. So this is just an opportunity in this room for us to engage with what might otherwise be a very difficult text and represent it in a way that was more accessible to the students. So this is an example of what you might do in the sandbox. So now you can't end the learning in the classroom. The learning does not stop when the classroom ends. Just like they had to read the mission statement and respond to it before they came in, they need to digest it and synthesize afterwards. So we head back to the LMS for evaluation and synthesis. You'll notice what I'm doing here. On the screen, you're going to see a Moodle discussion forum. I have pictures of what was on the wall, as well as videos of the students explaining what they meant by these pictures. And this discussion went on and on and on and on and on and on. Okay? So this is one class session. This is the outflow of one class session on the learning management system after we've engaged in this multi-display room. And if you don't use Moodle or you don't use discussion forums, you'll notice that I'm rating all of these students. I'm quite generous with them because I'm not trying to grade them. I'm trying to kind of incentivize and reward participation in the discussion forum. I could do a whole different presentation on that. If you're interested, just let me know. So here's some more ideas. Open your peer review. Before class, obviously, on the learning management system, you would submit your assignment so that a teacher has a rough draft copy. And then you go into the room, and like I was talking about earlier, these 2 pictures again of professors with papers on the wall going around, annotating papers, talking in open air, doing your review right there so that you don't actually have to edit later. Tremendously popular with this room. And then, of course, afterwards, if you use a module like Moodle Workshop or any other peer review module in your LMS, you can define a rubric. Over here on the right, you're going to see a rubric where you just click the level that you think the paper deserves for each criteria and give feedback. And so students, through the editing process in the classroom, will see all this on the wall, and then they'll go back and they'll do their reviews of each other's papers and give each other grades. The cool thing about Moodle Workshop is that it grades you on how well you grade the other students as compared to the teacher's review, which is absolutely nuts, but I can tell you a little bit more about that later. And these are just 2 examples of rubrics. We've got clickable levels over here on the right, and then radio buttons here on the left, arranged vertically. So let's see what else. Case studies in nursing. This is one of the most comprehensive pieces of instructional design I've done specifically for the sandbox. But we had a teacher, we have a strong nursing program at Carroll. And this professor is talking about nursing leadership. That's what this course is about. And there are 3 schools of thought for nursing leadership: Watson, Plaintree, and Magnet, that she wanted to integrate into this class. So what we did was we decided, well, in the first 5 weeks, we're going to have 3 groups. Those groups, one's going to do Watson, one's going to do Plaintree, one's going to do Magnet. They're going to put stuff on the walls, they're going to talk about it to one another, and they're going to work on understanding these schools of thought. Then we're going to remix the groups. We're going to take one from each of the 3 Watson, Plaintree, and Magnet groups, and we're going to make groups of 3, and then we're going to make them do case studies that integrate all 3 of them together. So now we have groups that are on the walls at these 5 different stations, and each one of the students in the group has a different level of expertise in a different school of thought in terms of nursing leadership. And their job is to integrate those schools of thought in the case studies that they're presented with. And then they present those case studies back to the class and their solutions to them. And then finally, at the end, they create a nursing plan in cultural or geographical context, which is really relevant in Montana, that creates patient-centered care in this cultural or geographical context using justification from all 3 of these schools of thought. Now, the idea here is that she said, traditionally we teach learning leadership, nursing leadership, and we do Watson, then we do Plaintree, and then we do Magnet, and the students fail to see the connections between them. But what I want to do is I want to put those all up on the wall, and I want the students focused on the connections rather than just being an expert in Watson or being an expert in Plaintree or being an expert in this. So how do we redesign our curriculum to make this happen? And this is, in a quick graphic, what we came up with. And there's a lot more about this, and I'd be happy to talk about that too, or some other idea that we've done. Collaborative physics. This is a really big deal. Again, the annotation over the digital graphics that you're using, and the ability to work together with a student who's up there writing on the wall and a student who's maybe doing some research over here. The open flexibility of the space really demands that, again, the teachers step aside. There's no teacher in these 2 pictures on the screen here. The teacher is not important in these scenarios. The students are the ones that should be doing the work. So integrated digital and physical space, I talked a lot about that, especially flowing back and forth freely between the physical classroom and the learning management system is a very big deal to me, because we all have a learning management system. The students expect us all to use it, and we're still teaching in classrooms. So we have to think about how to, so often I meet faculty who say, I've got this thing on Moodle, and then we're doing this other thing in class, and it's all the same space. The physical and digital space should be seamlessly integrated. It's all the same thing. It's just one class. And we can't get disconnected with that. In a room like this, you see the digital space integrated directly with the physical space in a very literal way. It's on the whiteboard wall, and you can physically write over it with an expo marker. That's an insight that I think all teachers really need to have. All right, so I'm going pretty quickly here. One last thing. Stop thinking about the screens. Start thinking about what your students are going to use them for. The screens don't matter. The screens don't matter, the screens don't matter, the screens don't matter. I hate to tell that to you AV people, but they don't. They're not important. What's important is what's on them. And the only thing that's important about that is how your students are interacting with what's on the screen. Okay? So as we're designing classrooms and as we're thinking about curricular redesign in particular, we need to make sure that we keep our focus on looking through the screen, leaving that technology aside, making it invisible so that our students focus on the content and get cognitively engaged with what we're trying to get them engaged for. So yeah, make them think, make them do, because memory is the residue of thought, and thought happens when instructional activities involve students in doing things and thinking about what they are doing. In that spirit, modern classrooms are designed for this type of instruction. So in that spirit, I can't just end, right? So I've talked at you for a while now, you're all ready to go. So I'm going to switch back over to poll everywhere. I'm going to clear out that poll, and I'm going to have you text to me one key takeaway for you, and feel free to talk about this amongst your group. And then we're going to sort of go back over those and make sure that you all that you're all with me here. All right, so go ahead, and if you didn't join, it's Sunset Lagoon 979. And then we'll have a look at what you guys have to say. And so this is, what's happening right now is kind of germane to what I'm talking about. What's happening when you pull out your phone and text is you're thinking and you're doing something, right? It used to be that we had to ask questions of only one student in the classroom, but with these active response systems and with the ubiquity of connected devices, you can have every single student in the room respond to you every single time you ask a question. There is no more student in the back of the room who's zoned out, because you all have to pick up your device and respond, because I've got data that shows me that you were or were not responding, and I will follow up with you and make sure that you did that. So like Poll Everywhere isn't great for that because it doesn't record user data, but there are lots of other programs that do that, like Nearpod, Socrative. You can use Moodle discussion forums for the same thing. Just say, hey, or your LMS, whatever LMS you're using, say, hey, go ahead and post to this, and you can keep track of who actually responded to your questions and who didn't, and you can give them some of that participation. So yeah, it's not just getting it up on the walls, it's not just visualization of what you read, it's actively getting every student in the room to respond to the questions that you're asking. So, I love this. You guys are awesome. I can't wait to go through some of these. All right. So here we have, let me start at the beginning. It is powerful to integrate digital and physical media together. Yes, absolutely. There are two sides of the same coin. You're only teaching one class, but that digital and physical space has to be integrated. Active pedagogy, definitely. The new classroom, the student is the focus. Teacher is able to step aside. It's more about what's on the screen. But more than that, I would say it's about what's in the students' heads. The screen's just a vehicle to get that content into your student's head. Change needs to include not just technology, but pedagogy. This is tremendous. Has anybody had a teal room or a really modern, beautiful classroom that's well designed, and then faculty go in and they hate it? Anybody ever seen that happen? Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. There are other schools that are building these sandboxes, and we go around and we talk to them. And one of the main things that we see is that they'll build a sandbox, but there's no real ownership, and there's no real instructional design to go along with that sandbox. And it's not a tremendous investment. You could spend a lot more on a full teal classroom with hundreds of feet of HDMI cable, but at the same time, it's so tragic to put space where space is limited on campus and put some new technology in there and not have people take it up. There has to be a pedagogical change. Keep the AV minimal and basic. This I think, is really important because talk to Dan Case about this. We think that the cabling is going to be gone real soon, like way sooner than you think. I mean, we had the VGA sunset, and we're talking about digital HDMI and stuff. We see it wireless in 5 to 10 years, and so we're trying to already build the classrooms where we don't have to run HDMI cable everywhere we go. And that's big. Keep the AV minimal and basic. And we're going to be seeing, I think we've sort of hit the plateau of lots of cables and lots of like physical stuff, and we're going to be trying to strip a lot of that out as we go into the future. Screens are not important, the content is, absolutely. More thinking about how to apply additional active learning methods in distance, synchronous, and asynchronous classrooms. I love this, synchronous and asynchronous. This distinction is really useful when you're designing, but in the real world where we have an LMS and a classroom, you're going to have to learn how to teach asynchronously and synchronously at the same time. There's asynchronous pieces of your class, there's synchronous pieces of your class, and those things are just going to it's going to be like a chalk drawing that somebody just went, mixed everything up. That's what I think about this distinction. Technology is seamless as the air. That's poetic. Somebody in here is a poet. I like that. and this cracked me up, short-throw projectors can actually be useful. I love short-throw projectors. I'm just like Mr. Short-throw projector because you can get, this is something that not a lot of people take into account. As I come over to point to this, I'm now putting a shadow over this comment, right? But with a short-throw projector, that doesn't happen. You don't cast a shadow because of the way the projector's coming down, and that's really cool about the sandbox. Yeah, teachers have to prepare projects, not just lectures. Projects. You've got to get those students up and actively involved in participating. Lots of creative ways to approach active pedagogy. Oh, this is good. I'm going to put this like somewhere on my blog. The product is the process. Absolutely. It's not the destination, it's the journey. You know, you meet somebody in a Vanagon in 1970 and they would tell you that, but it is really the process is the product, that experience, getting actively involved with your learning. Cognition occurs through interaction with blended physical digital environments. This is, I'm doing a Pechacucha later on, and I'm going to plug myself right now, what urban farming taught me about learning environments. And if you're interested in how cognition is directly related to the physical digital environment, I'm going to talk about that in a lot more depth in that Pechacucha. So whoever put this up there, thanks for that opportunity to plug myself there. More screens, but what's really important is what goes on them. Content, instructor guided, student driven. Our job is to geese the wheels with tech. I'm going to look up what it means to geese someone on Urban Dictionary, and then we're going to... we need tech liaisons at our college. Instructors need to be comfortable with technology. This is tremendous. One of the things with the Sandbox is that EasyMP software, you have to download it and install it on your computer in order to take your laptop screen wirelessly to any of these 5 displays in the Sandbox. So when we talk about getting instructors started using the Sandbox, we go in and do a 15, 20-minute deal with the students, and we say, download EasyMP, open it up. We go to the people who are using Windows 8 and say, go down to find your applications. Or we go to the people who are using Macs and say, you know, open Finder and hit applications and open it up from there. And here's how you do this and here's how you do that. And we don't leave the room until every single student can go to any screen at will. And that's tremendously important because you just can't make use of the Sandbox without the students being able to do that. So yes, oh thank you, and grease the wheels. Geez, Siri. Thank you, Siri, for that fortunate autocorrect. So now, same deal. I'm just gonna clear these out, and then I'm gonna have any questions or comments that you want for me to answer. So just go ahead and text those in. If you just want to raise your hand, that's okay too. I'd be happy to take those questions. Doug.
Concerning the question I have, and it's true of my university, is that I think from a technology standpoint, we have somewhat failed at my particular school, because we have a concept where there are many people within the different colleges who are not part of OIT, who are also not part of our Office of Academic Innovation, who, you know, are kind of caught in that weird little thing where, gosh, should I be dealing with the hardware issues? Oh my gosh, pedagogy issues. Or no, my job is to set up this PC in the office for this new faculty member. So as a university, I think we've kind of failed, or at least that model is come and gone. And we need to work on a better, newer model of support for academic learning on our campus that crosses all over. And what's happened in the last few years is that we've gotten siloed to some degree as being, might even be classroom technology. But that doesn't mean we're dealing with people who are instructional designers and developers like we should or had in the past up to 2006. So is that a problem that's unique to us, or is it happening to some degree everywhere?
From everyone that I've personally talked to, and you know, I'd solicit answers from everyone else too to this question, but from the people that I've talked to, that's very common. There is, I'm the hardware guy, or I'm the AV guy, or I'm the IB person, and we're really lucky at Carroll because we're small enough to be really agile, and when I got brought on board, they didn't exactly know what they needed from an instructional technologist, so there was a dialogue between Dan Case and Loretta Andrews, the director of IT, and me about, like I admin our Moodle, and I help design and install classrooms, and then I do instructional design as well. So all of those three things in the same office is really useful, and I would encourage, if you're thinking about reorganizing the way you think about your academic technology department, is to privilege interdisciplinary skills in that way. You want somebody who can plug the stuff in, who can run the cables, but who also knows about teaching. And when you find somebody with half of that package, try and educate them into the other half. So if you've got a really good AV person and you want to get them into doing instructional design that integrates the technology very seamlessly, think about professional development in the way of an education degree or something like that, because I think UNLV was talking about this earlier, you guys. I loved what you guys had to say about the professional development, because that's exactly the same thing that we're talking about here. We don't have degrees in this interdisciplinary thing that we're doing now because we haven't developed the degree programs for them. So once you have somebody with one part of the skills, look to educate them into the rest of it. Yeah, the Swiss Army knife approach, that's a good way to put it. The challenge of linking the course objectives, instructional design, active learning methods, and technology into a seamless delivery that the instructor can actually deliver effectively. And that's exactly what we're talking about here with this interdisciplinary skills. You know, you have to have somebody, especially for your faculty who have been in the game for a long time. Somebody with all of this stuff in the same head is really important to help them weed out where they're wasting their time and where their time is going to be well used doing redesign of the curriculum. Questions, comments? Brian?
This active pedagogy, I mean, how do you get faculty on board? I mean, you said you have a nursing lady and kind of said, this is what I want to do, but is there some word of mouth going on? Do you kind of want to push the faculty how to train? How do you get them to think when they thought perhaps not just staying on the stage?
The Swiss Army knife approach. Do it all. We do stipends for, last year we did, if you were at NWMET last year, I talked about the online teaching course that I provided for faculty at Carroll. We stipended that. Dan and Sean earlier were talking about iPads one-to-one. We are doing an iPad pilot program with faculty, and the carrot is to give them the iPad to participate in this. This is yours, you get to use it from now on, but you've got to come to these 8 sessions, do some write-ups and whatever. But I think the most important thing is the first thing that you said, which is word of mouth. The first work that you do with the first work that you do with the faculty from a particular department has to be stellar. You absolutely have to do a great job with that first person that you get coming in the room to change their teaching, because that's what's driven that peer review stuff. I did that with one professor like 3 years ago. It was the first time that we actually sat down and figured out everything about that. And then she went back and started telling other people in languages and literature about it, and all of a sudden my phone's ringing off the hook. Hey, can we redesign this comp class? Can we bring creative writing in there? How do I schedule the sandbox? Also, the build it and they will come is really important. The sandbox is a beautiful classroom, and we highlight it. We really feature it when we do campus tours. And so I have a lot of professors who want to come and teach in there. But the thing is, in order to get into that classroom, which we're building more of them now, so there's going to be a lot more of this going on. We're working on a grant to redo basically all classrooms this way. But if you want to get into the sandbox, you have to do some instructional design. That you have to work with me or with Dan to rethink the way that you're going to teach so that it fits the room itself. We're not going to put you in the sandbox just so you can lecture at students. Sorry, that's not what the room's built for. So in order to get in there, you have to come through us. And it's helpful because academic technology, meaning basically Dan and I, are the only people that can schedule that room. The registrar actually asks us if they can schedule full-time classes in there. So we get to say, no, sorry, they're not doing the curricular redesign. They just want to go in there and lecture. And the registrar will say, no, we're just going to put you in a regular classroom. So it's all about carrots. You know, we're not. I think it's kind of irresponsible not to redesign your curriculum at this juncture in our history professionally, but that's not really what's important about this. What's important about this is when the faculty are ready, I'm going to give them everything I've got, and I'm going to stick with them all the way through. And so yeah, that followed by the word of mouth is what makes stuff like this really happen. Any other questions, comments, tomatoes? All right, well, thanks everybody for listening. Please catch us and talk to us about this more.